You're not smart.
Okay, I'll start by calling the special planning commission meeting to order with a roll call, please.
Franklin.
Yes.
Honeycutt. Here. Parrish.
Here.
Homestead.
Yes.
Dement.
Present. And with that, I will turn it over to the mayor to call his council meeting to order.
I'd like to call over the special council meeting on August 16th, 2021 at 5:02. Roll call, please.
Wines. Morrill.
Here.
White.
Here.
Bell.
Here.
Brown. Here. Dillbeck.
Here.
Bonds.
Here.
Coldiron.
Here.
Stroller.
Here. I do declare a quorum, and at this time I will turn it back over to the planning commission. Chairman Dement.
All right, thank you. I'm just realizing that I actually have an agenda here. Item number one, and I did declare that we had a quorum. Item number one is receive a presentation by Jimbo Carnley of the CHC Management LLC concerning the proposed woods addition. And I believe Mr. Carnley is, oh, there he is. And what you might at least start with, because it's CHC Management, which I think was the original memorandum of understanding, but everything we've seen since then is KMR Development, so you might connect those two together.
Go back here so everybody can see.
It's all yours. Take over.
So where do we want to start?
Tell us what you want to do.
Okay, so we're proposing to do a development, which we consider more of a PUD. In this stage, it may not be so much a PUD, we're doing R1, but we have 81 single-family homes, 15 to 18 senior living, 16 door duplexes, 8-unit duplex, and a 1-acre storage unit, which is roughly about 25,000 square feet. We are proposing to do a park around the oil well. Hopefully we can remove the oil well and plug it and put a park in lieu of that space right there. Something we're working on now. If we can't, we're going to move around the well, put a stockade fence really high and still do a park. So that's our goal. It's set up in 4 phases. Phase 1 being, we don't have anything we can put on the board, but phase 1 is the multifamily, the storage unit, and the senior living, along with 17 single-family homes. And then phase 2 runs into 15 single-family homes, and then phase 3 and 4 are the other infill tracks. Mass grading will commence for the whole entire property by DEQ standards. I know there's some questions that we want to answer on that. So we will mass grade the whole entire facility, property, and then we'll go in there and put streets and utilities only on phase 1. Once that's 75% complete, we'll move to phase 2. The commercial storage facility will not be built until the neighborhood is a certain percentage complete, because the purpose of the storage facility is for residents of the neighborhood.
Do you know what that percentage might be on how complete it would need to be?
We're going to have to run our numbers and kind of see how fast they're selling. You know, there's a lot of factors in there. To say we would build a storage facility in there in 6 months or 5 years, we don't know. The thing about coming to Perry, we're a fairly large developer. We develop upwards of 500 to 600 single-family lots, and this year we will have developed about 150 senior living units, along with about 80 duplexes. So this is not new for us. We love rural communities. I'm up from Stillwater, so this is kind of in our backyard. Kind of our goal coming into these communities is to make them find what their needs are. And that's kind of why we came up with this proposal is what's your need? What does it need to service in Perry? You guys need homes. You need single-family affordable homes. You don't need $500,000 homes. We need affordable housing. Stuff for the working man. We need multifamily living, so that's duplexes. And you need your senior living. Those people that are more fixed income, we go in there, we manage the property. Same with duplex, we mow yards, we take care of for the senior living, we handle the trash, the water, anything they need from the exterior standpoint. They have zero level entry, so you can run a wheelchair in them. So it's really nice for people that need somewhere to live, that you go look around, it's a baby boomers are, it's a need, it's a huge need for the people upcoming that are getting older. So everything that we do though is conservative based on phases. So we come in here, we don't know, there's no history, there's no comps, you say in Perry to say, hey, you guys want to blow it out of the water and build 20,000 homes over here and it needs 5 more neighborhoods. We don't know that. We don't know if Perry can sustain 10 homes, if Perry can sustain 20 senior livings, if it even can sustain the storage unit. We don't know what its needs are because there's nothing to go by. So we're kind of gambling there saying, hey, we know it needs something, but what does it need at what pace? So is our goal to go in here and build 10 homes at a time? Yes. Hopefully we knock it out of the park and Perry receives that well and we kind of know what our market share is, and we'll build an array of homes from 1,300 square feet to 1,800 square feet. We're going to see which one of the mix sells better. What's next? You want to talk?
Doing a good job.
So we don't know what that mix is going to be, and that's something we're going to test the waters in. But what we have done is we committed to Perry and put in a big investment in. These developments are expensive. Just so you guys know, they don't pay out till you're about 75% complete, so we're going to be holding those costs until we get to that point. Our goal is to come in here and build so you guys have those homes and we hopefully can sell them and get them out so we can recoup our costs and move on. Same thing with multifamily. We'll go in there and build a few duplexes, a couple senior living, see how those things do. And if they things slow down and we say, hey, we got to pull back, that's why we did this in phases to protect both parties of what we're doing in this development. We're going to go out there and have all these vacant lots everywhere. So I feel good about what's going on. I think it's a need here. I think what we're putting in is hopefully well received. Our goal is to build a nice home. We will put an HOA in place, so it's not a strict HOA. And these aren't covenants, they're covenants along with an HOA. So there'll be a body, a managing body of the HOA that's in that group that lives on the neighborhood. So we'll deed that over to, once it's about 75% complete or so, we deed that over to the residents. They take that HOA and they can manage it how they please. But our goal with this is to look back in 20 years. For one, we have a big investment here as well, because we're investing in hopefully this commercial storage units, hopefully the multifamily, and the senior living if all this gets passed. So we're here to stay. So that stuff that we're putting in there, it's not going anywhere. That's us that we'll manage and keep. And we maintain our properties, and we maintain the property value. We want to hold it up standard of what we're doing. So that's why we're pretty particular on what we do. So we're not going to put this investment in over our multifamily and then sell a crappy house in the back unless somebody had a mechanic shop back there and devalue what our goal was. That's not what our goal is. Our goal is to build a nice home for people to come in and say, you know what, I live in the Woods Edition, that's a nice neighborhood. How are we going to do that? How are we going to keep that from somebody, you might buy a house and you're very proud of it, your next door neighbor won't mow his grass. I mean, there's nothing more to piss somebody off for your investment and where your kids are playing. So that's why we put these HOAs in place and say, you know what, these are a little bit of some rule following that we need to do. Part of the mini storage we're putting in place. There's some questions, a lot of questions about it. It's 1 acre. It's not much. It's very small. It's 24,000 square feet. It's not big at all. I mean, this whole entire building is probably sitting on more than an acre. It blends with the community. It doesn't have a sign out front. It's a rock fascia from the front. It's one entry going in off Locust, in and out. That's designed to keep the people that have those homes in the back saying, you know what, I want a boat. I want an RV. They're all-time high. Sales, you can't get an RV. I want to buy a boat. I want to have a place to store some of my tools or work on something. Well, I don't want to drive across town or I don't have a place to go where I can store all this stuff. Last time I checked, most storage units are full in Perry. Where do I go to do this? So we said if we put a small facility in the corner and blend it with the community, it'd be a great place for the citizens of that community to go and store it. Now, yes, it is open to the public. If somebody doesn't rent the unit that lives in the house and we have vacancy, we'll rent to somebody else. I don't think that's going to be a problem because there's 81 single-family homes, not including the duplex and stuff. I think all in all, it's over 105 units, and I think the storage unit's only about 60. So only about 50 or 60% of the people didn't even have a unit, they wanted it. So, small percentage, but it's something, not everybody will need one, but it's something that we can do to maintain that neighborhood. Same thing with a park, the goal is to put a park in, and feed that over to the city. I mean, they would have to maintain it, but we're gonna build it. We want a place where we can keep people there. We put 2 wet ponds on the property. One of them is when you pull into the right, it's gonna be a really big wet pond. I know we have some drainage questions. I'm gonna try to hit all these issues up front, and then you guys can ask me.
And can I interrupt you, let you catch your breath for just a second? Because I was remiss in kind of explaining what the ground rules of our meeting are going to be, which basically we're here in the presentation. You're going to go through all that. I just want to let everybody know what will happen when he's through. We're going to hear some engineering information, what have you. The council and the planning commission will have the opportunity to ask questions. Once we're through, each person here will get a chance to ask questions, make a statement. And I think the agenda said 3 minutes. I don't know how tight that'll be. Just want to make sure everybody knew kind of what we're doing. And go ahead and talk about some of the drainage and what have you.
So there's some questions on drainage. So just to keep things in mind, this is a federal standard, DEQ standard. We don't make these rules up. This is why we hire engineering firms. We can't outflow, so we can't discharge water more than what is already being discharged. So if anything, we discharge it less. So you're like, well, how is that possible when you have all these houses? Well, what we do is we run drainage down the streets. So I know to the east where those homes are, and your backyard has a huge elevation change, about 8 or 9 foot, because they have a washout, that will go away. What happens is you have a house there. The only thing that can outflow there is from the house. Everything else drains to the street. So all that water coming from the west to the east will now hit streets, run down streets to detention ponds. These detention ponds are very large. We don't have feelings or emotion when it comes to, hey, is this guy offloading water on my property? We can't do that. We go by the book. So the book says this is what we have to do, this is what code says we have to do, this is what our engineers say we have to do, and that's what we do. And it's signed off on by the state. And if it doesn't work, those boys are liable, and somebody's gonna come in and get it fixed, because can't happen. So the detention ponds you can make wet or dry. We elected to make them wet. We like wet ponds if possible, due to kids wanting to fish. If they're sizable enough, you want wet ponds. Plus, if they're dry, you can collect mosquitoes and crap you don't want around. So they are big wet ponds. So they're going to be pretty when you pull in. We do nice landscaping, stocking with fish. Kids can do whatever they want around the ponds. That's another thing. The HO maintains the pond mowing around around both wet ponds and the 2 entrances on the neighborhood. So when it comes to drainage issues, I think there's hopefully that hits those topics. If you are on the east side of the development, we take donation checks because we're going to fix your drainage problem in the back of your yard. You shouldn't have any more issues when this development comes in. Is there any questions?
There's an oil well sitting right in the middle of it.
Yep.
What the plans I saw said it still belongs to someone else, but it's going to be abandoned.
We can't make him abandon the well. It's a gas well. Doesn't produce much. When we bought that land from Mr. Woods, that's why we named it the Woods Edition. It's been in his family for many years. We bought the minerals as well. The reason why we did that is we're trying to persuade that guy to either let us buy or plug it. He has given us a price to buy the well. He does not want the well there when we start doing the neighborhood. So I think the pressure's on him to get rid of that. No more than it makes, it doesn't serve a purpose. So I think I know in time that thing will be done. I can't say it's going to be day one, but we don't want it there any more than anybody else.
What about the flow line that runs off of it?
Well, the flow line doesn't really have an easement. That's why nobody can find it. So we can move the flow line anywhere we want. So as long as the well is existing, we have to relocate it for him, which we'll do. We'll put it right next to like a utility easement. So the flow line's there, but once that we abandon the well, we'll plug the flow line up, you can purge the line, and just, it'll stay in the ground. It's a gas well though, so it doesn't have any oil.
Marvin, there's some talk about property values.
Pardon?
Property values? You talked earlier about some property values.
I know a lot of people have concern with developments coming in, like you're going to devalue my property, you're going to, and I'll hit on this topic, increase traffic flow. So devalue property value is actually false. So we put it in a neighborhood in Stillwater, we're finishing it now, where the neighbors said, hey, we're going to devalue my property. Well, those homes were selling anywhere from 80, they were built between 1955 and 1985 roughly. Those homes were selling between 80 and $100 a square foot. A nice one was selling for $100. We put in our development, and one of the neighbors got mad, and he said, I'm gonna sell my house. Well, our comps in our homes that we started building are at $150 a foot. And so he goes to sell his home, and now his home sells at $125 a foot because we set a new comp. It's hard in Perry because there's not very many new homes to set comps. So we can't tell you their home's going to be at 125 for a new home or 160 because the market value is a little different. But I will tell you that if you live next to a new development, you go buy a little bit more current comp. So our homes are going to be at the highest comp you can get because they're brand new. So when we go in there, let's say a Perry does comp at $125 a foot, and an existing home next to it says 60 or 70, I would expect your value to go up. You know, it's going to go up greater? No, but it's not going to go down. You never decrease property value by putting a new neighborhood next to it. Never.
There's a commercial section right in the middle of a residential neighborhood, basically, be completely surrounded by residential, residentially zoned. We tabled that at our last meeting, taking action until we could talk to you before we made a recommendation. And the planning commission only has the authority to make recommendations. We say that as often as we can. But let's just, what happens if that gets denied?
So kind of here's where we are. We've been working on these plans behind the scenes for 6-7 months, Larry, for a while. We've put a lot of money, time, thought, energy, effort, had roundtable discussions. We've set many, many meetings going over these things of this, what we call a PUD, saying this is the reasons why we're doing these things. Can we agree on phases, what works best? So just so everybody's clear, this is not something that we just came up and said, hey, this is what we want to do, we want to do it right now. This has been a long-going process behind the scenes. It takes a lot of thought of what we really want to do. And you know, a storage unit was, hey, we're putting a storage unit in the middle of residential. Why? Well, I gave you the reason why we're doing it. And does it look bad? No, it doesn't. We make sure it won't look bad. This goes back to it's a property that we're retaining. We own the multifamily and the senior living on all three sides. Mr. George owns the property to the west. We'll make sure that there's trees in between. It looks good. The face that's in the front's, you know, brick, and it blends with the neighborhood. So I don't think that's going to be, I don't know why it would be a concern. I understand going into this, man, we're going to put a store right next to my house. It's going to look really nice, and it's not that big. As far as traffic flow and traffic count, it does not increase traffic. If anything, it decreases traffic. There's very few people that actually go to a storage unit every day. The statistics are really, really low. So if you only have 60 units, you might get 100 cars, 68 cars, 100 cars a month. I can't remember what I was telling you guys. It's really, really low what the traffic count that's going in and out of there. Plus it's an arterial street.
Crime?
Crime?
The increase in crime for putting a storage area in the middle of the neighborhood?
I think we've never seen an increase in crime. I mean, there's cameras on storage units. Our storage units are all unmanned. We use a technology system that people have to, it's monitored. So we don't man any storage units anymore. That's kind of a thing of the past. So technology, even our large ones, this is the smallest one we've ever built. You pay by credit card, you go online, you reserve your spot, In this instance, you know, when you sell a house, you can keep your storage unit, but it's all paid by via ACH. There's computers and monitors at the front. The whole thing's monitored, so I mean, if there is crime, you can catch it really, really quick. I don't think there's going to be an issue with crime on that.
It has a fence around it, is that right?
It's gated, it's 100% gated, yeah,
The storage unit is, or the property itself?
the storage unit.
Is there, sorry, I was just wondering if there's a reason that it has to be located on Locust? You said it's for the people who live there. Is the reason you couldn't put it in the middle of their property?
You don't ever want to put any commercial off on Imperial Street. I mean, yeah, people driving in with a trailer or RVs, and in the middle of the neighborhood is kind of where we want to put the park, which is where the well is. So it's never really good to put a storage unit. The next thing you gotta look at is,
You said it's gonna look good.
it does, but the problem is you have your sewer, your water, your streets, and your flow. So if you put a storage unit right there, then you're going to reroute your sewer lines and your water lines, because you can't run those things underneath a commercial facility or any facility. So when you take that up, you're taking up a big chunk of where your utilities need to be. So when we look at where the storage unit is now, or where we're wanting to put it, it's completely away from all that stuff. We don't have any utilities up there. There's no water, sewer, there's nothing in that.
Well, traffic to and from the commercial property wasn't our concern. It's gonna devalue the property. You don't have storage over there in Stillwater. I've looked at that, those homes you were talking about, and that increasing the value. Yeah, brand new homes are gonna increase the value of the other homes around there. Storage is not.
I have 45,000 square foot.
If I could
facility.
interrupt just for a second, just so that we can keep, we'll get back to that if you don't mind. And I know, I'm assuming the rest of the commission may or may not have questions. The council may, but was hoping to at least maybe hear from the city's engineer. The engineer that's been done is by your engineer, and then it's reviewed by the city's engineer, as I understand. And just to get some verification that yes, everything you said is correct, by someone who's like putting their license out there on their statement.
Commissioner, thank you for having me. We have reviewed the documents provided by Jimbo, and we had some questions, but most of our questions have been answered. And the plans and specifications that he provided meet the city regulations that we reviewed and that we can review as far as drainage, placement of the houses, the water, the sewer lines, and other utilities that they're showing, the right-of-way, building setbacks, which are required by your regulations. And as far as the zoning goes, it appears to meet all regulations that are provided by the planning and zoning.
Well, and I'm gonna ask a question, because I know Kevin's gonna wanna ask this, and I'm gonna help him out here. There's a tin horn runs across under Locust to the south side of it would be of the south detention pond. That water, I suppose, runs from south to north through there. In times of flooding, will it back up and run the other direction?
We reviewed the drainage on site. Currently, it all flows down the hill, like he was saying, to that ditch already. They're proposing a wet pond, as he said, which will discharge to one point in that ditch. We don't foresee it backing up, but that's not saying that the tin horn doesn't get backed up and cause other issues. Currently, that's the way it's flowing, and it will still flow through that same process. They've actually shown that they will be decreasing the overall flow to that point in the long term, because the pond will contain some water.
And if the tin horn is open, it's adequate for the drainage, the area, the size of it right now? Or was that included in
their drainage report?
Yeah.
I can't speak totally to that, but it's to that point that they're draining to.
But this flow from this developed property does not go through that tin horn?
No, it heads north.
Comes from,
Hopefully.
yeah.
Yes, that's the intent.
That's the, potential concern is maybe the flow backwards.
Since I brought you into it, I'm gonna let you go
So
ahead.
to follow up on that, so on your little detention pond, you guys have got a 52-inch long pipe that's 12 inches. That's what the diameter of your pipe is 12 inches in that area. So you're telling me that's gonna handle the overflow of a 12-inch pipe? Poly pipe is what you're telling me in that detention pond.
Well, the intent of the 12-inch pipe
Just to let it flow.
is to let it flow no more than what it already does flow.
And I'm assuming that you've got the elevations already, so if it gets to that point, it's gonna, could possibly go up and around. If it floods, it can go up and around.
Of the pond.
Yes. And then it's gonna end up on me. And it's gonna go backwards through the pipe.
Well, the pond's meant to retain the water in the pond.
I get that, I understand that it's gonna be different. Also, the bigger question is who's gonna maintain that? Who's gonna maintain the control of the silt in that pipe? Because that pipe will silt in. So to me, you're putting a lot of emphasis on a 12-inch pipe to handle that much water. I think it's under design.
Just talking about the 12-inch pipe on the pond?
Southeast.
Yeah, but it's designed to choke down.
It's designed, I understand it's designed to check out, but everybody knows you design a pipe, it's only, you're supposed to design it half the capacity.
And then from the sill standpoint, the pipe's really high, and that pond's probably gonna be 15 feet deep.
So I didn't know what the depth was.
It's a wet pond, so it's full.
If it silts in, we got problems.
Yeah.
Right, and that's what I'm trying to get at. If it does silt in, who's responsible for that?
One of our questions was who's maintaining the drainage easements? We're
Right.
still working through that right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So another question is who, when you're building this and you're doing a complex, who's responsible in liability if something happens or somebody gets in that pond and something happens to them, God forbid? Is it gonna be the city? Is it gonna be the developer? How are we gonna keep people out of that pond?
In the long term, the easements describe who's responsible for those.
Right, and that's what I'm trying to say.
But during construction, this will be the developer's
Right.
property, and it will be
Right, I
his
get it.
liability.
So I'm asking the developer, after this is all said and done, is the HOA, or whoever it's gonna be, they're gonna have the ultimate responsibility if something happens
Correct.
on that
That's
property.
And you put signs up, no different than any other pond.
Right, and I'm just asking.
Yeah.
So on these so-called ponds, do you guys come in there, do you sod them, or you just let them do their own thing, or what do you do?
No, we sod them
Sod
immediately.
'em?
Yeah, but we will not seal up the pond until we're done with the development.
Okay,
So we leave the pond, so we go in there and build the pond, and we'll leave it cut open. So you'll have a big open, just like the whole
Okay.
development's draining naturally now.
okay.
And then right before we get done building streets, see, right now, you have a certain velocity because you have grass holding things back.
Right.
When we put streets in there, your velocity changes. So you're really moving water faster.
Well, see, the problem is I catch all the water on the south side. I catch water on the south side coming down this street. I catch it coming back from the south catching the street. I catch it coming on the other side of the road. So I'm just curious, when you did your little study, did you take that into consideration? Not only you have water coming this way, but you got the water that's coming on the other side of the road rushing down, catching the well back that way.
From the west and from the south.
Yes. Did you guys take that into consideration when you were designing this?
I believe their overall basis took the whole site into account.
Not according to your little diagram, everything was based on this side.
Usually, we're only responsible for what's on our property.
Right, and I get that,
Right,
I'm just
so
saying,
if-
I'm just saying in the big scheme of things, when they're looking at it, and you understand there's a lot of water that rolls on the south side and comes down this way and makes a turn back that way.
Yeah, our goal is to, for just our property standalone, no, we're not looking at adjacent property and what their
Right.
outflow is, because we can't control that.
Is
But
that
for-
something the city should look at?
That's something that would have to be from a city standpoint of what their drainage looks like on their ditch.
Right.
They
If
could
that-
have a drainage master plan in the future. But those are considered bypasses on the site because they aren't from the site.
I understand that, but still it affects the site. Just asking.
I'm not gonna count that as your 3 minutes, by the way, since I started. I did want, hopefully you could address sewer, make sure we're not talking about backing the sewer up on someone. We have adequate drop. I'm assuming that was all taken care of in the engineering report.
Early on in the process, when they were doing their due diligence, the city asked that we look at the capacity of the sewer in the area, and we made recommendation of what it could handle in increased flow. And it appeared that the sewer can handle this entire development.
It appears.
Well, we can't control how much rainwater gets into the sewer when it rains because it's older infrastructure, but we can make assumptions for how much you're getting in there as far as peak flow and what can be done.
Yeah, just as a clarification, we had originally been told the sewer is going to run basically to the northeast corner and then out to the east over to 9th. And we were originally told that's a 6-inch line that runs east there off of the, and then at the last planning commission meeting, the engineer said that they had looked at that and it was an 8-inch line, which would be sufficient. Can you clarify that?
We were using historical maps to make those determinations. Then the 6-inch was one of our concerns, but we found out later with further field investigation that it had been replaced at some point.
So it is definitely an 8-inch. Okay, I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, we had the same concern.
Hearing it from you.
It's all 8 inches in pieces of it's 8 inch. Is it all 8 inches, just pieces of it?
As our understanding, it's 8, and then on down the line, it actually goes up to a 10, is my understanding.
I don't know if that gets into that sewer line at Brookwood Park or not, but we from 15th Street all the way down to just east of 9th Street, we replaced. And now from 9th Street onto the football field is our next phase. So hopefully that will be soon replaced all the way to the football field.
And my main reason for bringing that up is I want the engineer to tell us, yes, it has, the sewer capacity is engineered to be able to handle this new addition without causing a problem to them or somebody else.
And made recommendation that it was accepted.
Okay. And there's sufficient water, I suppose, to,
Yes, I think the hydraulic analysis actually came from their staff, but it's been reviewed, and it will also be reviewed by DEQ when they submit for their construction plans.
okay. Anybody else got anything on that while I'm rolling? Anybody on the council have any questions? Y'all are welcome to ask questions at this.
I've got a question. So,
Please.
I believe you asked just a while ago what would happen if they did not have the commercial.
I did ask that.
And he answered by telling me how much time and money they've had on the plans, but that was never answered. So if you do not get the commercial part of this, what then?
Well, we were looking at that earlier, it runs uphill. So it's very costly to change that. Even though it's an acre, we'd have to run a different street in there with a cul-de-sac because it's not designed for 3 streets off Locust, nor do you want 3 streets in that short period. The sewer doesn't sewer. The water's not a factor. It's easy to bring in, but the sewer doesn't sewer. So that property is lower than the sewer line that's running east-west. So we gotta figure something out.
So I think, and I wish I would have been able to ask more people, but I didn't. But just looking at it as an individual, if I have a property that's right next to your storage building, maybe it doesn't bring my property down, but maybe it will reduce the amount of people that would like to buy it if I decide to do something with it. And so I'm just trying to look at the full scale of things. That's why I'd like to know, if you can't do a commercial, what would you do after that?
We don't know.
Is
We
it
haven't been to Plan B because we didn't think we needed a Plan B, to be honest.
possible to cut down the number of houses so that each person could have their own convenient storage place on their property, or rather than having a commercial storage place?
At this stage in the game, we've already engineered this for the lots and designed it. So we talked about changing the whole entire layout of the development. Would be pretty, we've got, from just an engineering standpoint, I know we probably have 5 months involved of engineering.
Pretty ignorant that, but I just, that's one thing I could think of that.
Right. And the lots we have put in, are very, they're nice lots, they're big lots.
Okay.
It's not designed for high density, this is a low density neighborhood, so 3.5, Bryce, is it 3.5 lots per acre or something? Is that what we're talking? I think that's
I'm
right.
not sure.
4 houses an acre.
Okay.
And this is, these lots are 120 by 95 maybe, so it's big. It's bigger than a normal lot.
Okay.
I have a question, sorry.
I just didn't look like.
Oh, you opened up saying that we're not even really sure if the farmers market can handle the commercial.
Correct.
What led you down to include this in your plans early on?
The storage,
Yes.
keeping the neighborhood nice. Yeah, we figured if we want to maintain, I mean, I'm from Hominy, so I'm from a really small
Okay.
town. I understand what goes into this and what small towns can look like, what they attract, I mean, they have great people in them, but sometimes you don't know what your neighbor can always be. And that's just the fact of what it is. And coming from Hominy, I mean, I've seen that. Lived there my whole entire life, till we still work. So we want to make sure that we have a nice, reputable neighborhood when we build this. I mean, we don't want to come in here and invest, and let's say it takes us 7 years to build a neighborhood out. I mean, which is not uncommon of this size, especially in a size of community this is. So in 7 years, what's our first year of homes look like at that point? And does somebody still want to live in that neighborhood? You know, is the comp still there? They maintain that neighborhood where it's still nice. Where you can say, you know, I want to live in that neighborhood. Or do you have beat up trucks and junk everywhere? And that's not what we want to go after. So that's why we put that in place. Keep in mind, we're investing a few $1 million in the duplex and senior living, which is surrounding that. So on the north side of the storage unit, it backs up to our senior living. So our senior living covers the whole entire north side of this. And then on the eastern side of it is the street coming in, which will be the back side of the units. So the only thing you're really going to see is the very front part, which is not very wide. It's only maybe 250 feet wide. That's not that wide. It's really narrow and skinny. We did that on purpose. So you wouldn't see much from the front. So from Locust Street, it's not very wide.
On the retention ponds, what happens when they get full if we have a flash flood? Where's the water gonna go then?
That's what it's designed to do, is hold water and then just outflow, has an outflow on it.
They're designed to under-year floods, which is what's typically required.
We've had a few of those lately.
So you're saying if the commercial is not approved, you'll have to find something else to put in that spot, like a park or something else?
We already have parking there.
Or, well, I mean, something, you'd have to find something else.
Yeah, because right now it doesn't sewer.
Gotcha.
So you can't build anything else, like a house on there, is that what?
Not unless we would change our sewer plans and design, because right now it's lower than what the sewer line is, so it's running uphill the sewer.
So, okay.
It's very hard. Water's never a problem, it's the sewers which go in for. So we either have to put we have to put a lift station, which are very costly, and then we just want to have to cul-de-sac. Cul-de-sacs are expensive, you're talking a lot more streets. It would completely change from the economic standpoint, what we're doing.
You could sell that part to George.
I know, you want to buy it.
And at this point, I'll kind of discuss one of the things, anytime we talk about zoning, and I typically bring this up, I think every time, we're not zoning for the next 2-3 years for this project, we're zoning for the next 50 years. And we have to look into what happens if for some reason you sell the property before you put the mini storage on it. I know that's not the plan, but the right money comes up, or you fall over dead tonight, whatever, it may happen. So we have to look at once we rezone it, we have to look what else can go in there. I don't live in that particular neighborhood. It doesn't affect me pretty much at all, but I also have to look at the fact that once we set precedent, then this can happen. Anything can be rezoned in the entire city, and we kind of are compelled to go with it at that point. And I'm just bringing that up, just that's part of our thought process as
As
a
we talked
planning
about
commission.
this, I think we put I'm open to a special agreement or a special use permit if possible, where we can say, hey, we're going to zone this for commercial, for storage unit only. And if the event that this doesn't go in, let's revoke that, let's take it back to an R1 or to whatever it was zoned previously, which is in agriculture. So, where, this is the only thing that we were going to say we want to put in there. So if I did follow the dead or something were to happen, that somebody's not going to come in there and put something else.
And I'm going to go ahead and I did some research on this. At least I'll share this with the rest of the commission and the council. I don't know that the planning commission can take any action at all tonight. At our last meeting, we tabled action on the proposed C2. We didn't table to a specific date. So I don't know that we can take any action at all on that without scheduling a new hearing, which is kind of what we're doing here tonight. But technically, we have to do that. Everyone that lives within 300 feet, I believe, would have to be notified in writing again with 20 days' notice. So from that perspective, I don't know that we can take action on that. We've already taken action on the rest of it. I will also add, I'll read this. Section 12-111 of this is basically the very first section where it talks in zoning. And it says zoning regulations shall be made in accordance with the comprehensive plan and designed to lessen congestion in the streets. It goes on, but essentially, the comprehensive plan at this point has that zone, that section we're talking about for commercial is zoned for single-family residence. And then talking with the city attorney earlier, once we get to that point, assuming that one needs to be rezoned, then the first thing that needs to happen is the comprehensive plan will need to be amended in order for the rezoning to match that. Am I correct on all that, Bryce?
Yes.
Did I paraphrase it all correctly?
Yes, with respect to, the comprehensive plan looks at low, medium, and high density uses. And low is residential, and medium is commercial, and high is industrial. So prior to the time that you would rezone that to commercial, the comprehensive plan, which I have right here, was adopted in 2006, and it has what's called a future land map in it. And so back there in 2006, they were saying, what would be the right thing to put on this property in the future? What type of uses, and of course, it's a residential use. And so you would have to amend the comprehensive plan to a medium intensity use to provide commercial. But as you said, property can be rezoned, but all zoning has to follow your comprehensive plan. All zoning must be planned. And so this would have to be amended, and we've done that numerous times when we've gone up in intensity on property. So the plan is that this stays residential, okay? But of course, the plan can be amended. And if you're gonna change the zoning, it needs to be amended prior to the time that you would approve the zoning. And we wanna ensure that, all the public gets as much, notice as possible. I would say at this point that the planning commission has made recommendations. There's two recommendations to approve zoning ordinance, and there's another recommendation to table the commercial. Having complied with the notice, the public hearing requirements, I'm not saying that it has to go back to the planning commission. If the council wanted to make a decision, they could make a decision on zoning. However, Once again, prior to making a decision on zoning, you would have to amend the comprehensive plan. That's currently not on the agenda, okay, because I did not anticipate that would be, at this point, the action that you would take when you just, received the preliminary plat, at this point, and the documents that we gave you. I assumed that it would take, more than one meeting. So I mean, theoretically, you could pass it to another meeting and you can consider it at that time. But I suppose at the city council meeting, we'll discuss your feelings on that commercial, and I will give you direction as appropriate.
I have a question. Trying to think, did you get the cart in front of the horse a little bit? I mean, why didn't you get all your zoning and stuff done before you did all your planning? To make sure you get everything done how you wanted it to be, so you're not running into, you wouldn't be running into any hard schools.
Because when we came up with our phases and our plan and our design, I've been meeting with the city.
But the city, but not with the planning commission.
No, planning commission. But I've been meeting with the city and the staff, and we didn't think we'd have any problems with what we're putting in place. So if we did think and we knew we were going to be at this stage in the game, we would absolutely have done that. But we do not think we're going to have any issues
Sitting there
with that.
looking at me like, that maybe that's what happened, you got ahead of yourself.
Well, we were going by the recommendation of what we should do with Perry. So, I mean,
So did the city
Mine are right here.
ask you to do this, or is
the
this?
development,
What was your question?
did
Did the city
come
come to him and ask him for
for the
this?
development?
Yeah, did somebody approach you for this, or did
They
you just
did.
come across this property?
Yeah, no,
Thanks.
I was approached from one of your guys, Danny Shea. So I've known Danny, and he said, hey, can you help our city out? I think we need some houses.
I was just curious.
Yeah, he
Wondered
did.
how this all came about.
Yep. And then I met with Larry, and then Danny and Larry helped me find some land, and we looked at some other properties and said, we ran some economics, can it work? I think it can, with a little bit of assistance on what we can do in phasing and the right market, but willing to take a gamble. I mean, we're in Stillwater, we've been really successful there. We've been successful in rural communities. That's kind of what we focus on. So,
But how many of these members does this affect? How many, since you said you were working with the city? And they're, oh yeah, that's a great idea, which it is a great idea. But how many of them are affected by it?
affected.
Affected, have houses, properties, traffic, all the things that go with it. The flooding, yeah, the flooding, all this, how many of those people will be affected by it?
I don't know where anybody lives.
There you go.
But I understand, development, this is not new for us. And I understand progress and change is hard, especially when you live around and development, right? And I get that. And we do the best we can to be the best steward we can of the neighborhood. I mean, and I can't say it enough, we're not going anywhere. I mean, that's why we built what we're building in the front, because we're going to at least dictate what's going into the neighborhood, what it looks like going in. So, in 20 years, I can't say what the back's gonna look like. The HOA's not kept up, because that's members of the HOA, but I know the front's gonna look good, and that's why we
That's
put
what you
it.
were talking about.
And if I can interrupt you just for a second, if you could stand up and address, and tell us who you are when you speak, because we need that in the record.
Okay.
And that would hold true for anyone, please.
I'm Mary Lou Beasley, and I live down the block from there. And I live at 1203 Locust Street. And what my thought is, everybody's all, and we're all for it. I think the big thing is the commercial. That's the big thing with us, but the flooding, the traffic, you say, Locust is not a main artery. It's a racetrack. And you got schools down here, and you've got so much traffic in there, the flooding. People already have their homes down there. I mean, these guys can't say, we're all for it, I'm sure they are. But then you've got the people that actually live there and are gonna have the damage and the traffic. And a commercial building, if you said today, I'm done with the commercial building, I'll let it go, then we could just move on to a lot of other things. But it is, it's the traffic, the flooding, the people with homes around there. Most people have lived there for years and years and years. And we've heard the story, building houses and whatnot. We got this, we got the sewer lines, and this is gonna drain. And then when the city runs into trouble, like one lady we talked to a couple of weeks ago, then they don't have the money to do anything and let her suffer through this. It's like the city's not got your back. And that's what we're all, I mean, and I don't mean that unkind, but we don't have money like we used to, where you could go in and fix the roads and all these things.
And I'm gonna add something on that. You were like addressing that to him. From his perspective, our thoughts is the engineering, and I think Sherry said at the last meeting, the engineers will work that out. If it doesn't engineer, then it won't happen. And if it does engineer, then they'll make sure it's right. As far as traffic flow and the speed and what have you on Locust, don't talk to him, talk to these people on that. Because that's not what he's here to do.
Well, he's saying though, that if he doesn't have that commercial property, he's out money, he's out, and as you said, you kind of got the cart before the horse. And I'm gonna be quiet now, thank you.
I think if you look at a Google Earth map, a bird's eye view of
Yes.
of Perry, you have this one 30-acre tract in the heart of town, and that's almost in the heart of town. And it's not designed to be a field. When Perry was built, and the homes have gone around it, that's designed to be built as a neighborhood. It can handle that.
And it is in our comprehensive plan to be residential.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with any of the residences, again, like
That
as you said,
was
my problem is with the commercial.
Out
property.
past the dirt, they were building houses and they just hung on to that. They hung on to that and wanted it to be just as it is. And that's why it's that way. I mean, yeah, you can, I don't have an objection to residential by any means.
We've kind of got the public asking questions to come. Does the council have any more questions that come to mind?
On
Please.
the 4 phases that you have, what is the phase of the commercial?
It's in phase one, because the whole phase one is everything in the front. But from a financial standpoint, we can't build a storage unit until we get really far along with the housing, so we can make sure that it's going to cash flow.
That would be, that's kind of my question too. If that is the first phase and it is intended to be able to be for the neighborhood, then it seems like it would be later in the phases and not part of the first one.
And the reason being is your street's already there. So there doesn't take water or sewer in storage.
Right.
But the street goes right beside it, and your mass grading already has to be done, so you might as well put it in phase one. I mean, you can put it in phase 4, but it doesn't really matter because the street grading's already been done. Because streets have to be put in, which is on the east side of it, so it's already there.
I get that, but if you're really trying to get the commercial for the neighborhood,
Well,
then
you
it
have to
seems
do
like
the-
it would come when the neighborhood is a little bit more full and you would have residents inside that neighborhood that would be using those storage units and not residents that are outside the neighborhood wanting to use those storage units.
Well, we won't build it until we get to that point, but if we don't zone things up front, you're never going to rezone once you get 3 unit rates, you get more homes in there and people have something else. So you need to do your PUD and your zoning all up front.
Well, I get that, so just because you're saying it's part of the phasing doesn't mean that you're ready to build it as part of phase 1.
We will not be building this thing until we've had so many houses built in that neighborhood. It doesn't make sense. Same thing with the multifamily, with duplexes in the senior living. We can't go in there and build 16 units on duplexes and 15 or 18 on senior living. We don't know where occupancy levels is going to be. So we have to phase everything
And how many other neighborhoods have you guys gone out and built?
in a PUD system like this.
Yep.
We have 3 in store currently building right now, and we just did another minor subdivision. We have 1 in Donny Grove, Ponca City, Perkins, Pryor, and Enid.
And do they all have storage units like this?
3 of them
And where are those 3 at?
do, right in the heart of it. The 1 in Pryor is right in the Pulling neighborhood. The one in Stillwater, the big development we just did, where I was talking about the homes. You have to drive to the storage unit to get to the, now there's 3 points of access on that neighborhood, but one of the points off the arterial street is through our storage unit. And actually, you go through the heart of the storage unit, splits it on both sides. It's very large.
And where's the other one?
Prior.
Prior, where you said Prior and Stillwater, where's, you said there's Perkins?
This is storage.
What was the third one? You said there was 3.
No, just for.
Oh, for Perry would be the third, okay.
Just for neighborhoods with storage.
Which one in Stillwater was that?
It's off Jardo. Go Lakeview south, maybe half a mile.
For those entire developments you did, or was that adding on to ones that were existing?
No, the one in the one with the storage unit is a brand new development. It's raw land. Same thing here is 30 acres. And we took it and rezoned and did the whole from ground up. The one right around the corner was an existing neighborhood, but didn't have the streets in. And it was actually zoned for multifamily. We went in there and rezoned it for single family, put in new streets, but the part of the infrastructure was there is 30 homes. And then we're doing another one in Parkview, which is next to the school. Same thing. Our model is, it's not a hidden secret. We like to be close to schools, we like to be close to arterial streets. We like to have enough raw land where you don't go in there and you kind of control what the neighborhood's going to look like. So we don't want to go in there and build 5 homes. We want to go in there and build 50, 60, 80 homes so we can control what the neighborhood looks like. And we love being close to schools. That's our, if you look at all of our developments we have, they're all pretty much walking distance to the school where you can ride your bike with a 2-minute bike ride. Same thing with this neighborhood. I mean, Larry showed me some property south of town that said, hey, the city owns this land. Maybe we can do something. That's just too far. It's not close to the school. With the school system going in there, and you guys trying to grow the community, kids need affordable living. They need places to go to school, to walk to school. That's still a thing, especially in small communities. You can't get a better place. I mean, it's there.
I think one of the questions is we're referring to Locust as an arterial street, and I've always thought of it as just a street through a residential neighborhood that just didn't happen to have a stop sign between 7th and 15th. And maybe I'm wrong on that.
It's a racetrack.
It is, it's a racetrack.
Kids walking to school on Locust? I don't think so.
They don't. And I wish that some of the parents in our neighborhood were here because they will not let their kids walk to school because Locust is so dangerous. My neighbor is at her child's softball game tonight. She will not let her kids walk to school up there because it is so dangerous.
Yeah, I make Jack's walk a block up and over if he walks.
Yes, yeah, that's
But there's no sidewalk on Locust? I mean,
No. And I even was hit when I was younger walking on Locust, and that was a long time ago.
Did the council have any additional questions they wanted to ask, or waiting to think of them, or?
I do have a statement I want to make. I respect everything you guys are saying, every single piece, okay? But we have to separate from what we're talking to Jimbo about, from what you need to come talk to the council about, okay? If there's traffic issues there, I need to know about it. I can't tell Brian Thomas to go patrol that street, but I can make my city manager tell Brian Thomas to go patrol that street and put a stop to this. So let's not beat up Jimbo for wanting to put a neighborhood in there because we have traffic issues or we have kid issues. That's our problem, and we sure want to put a stop to that immediately.
And we've been talking about that for a couple of weeks, and it is highly important. You've known about it. I talked to Brian about it. He's doing his best to get some guys up there. It's not his problem. It's, the whole thing is just the way the city was built. We never had sidewalks. Anybody that's lived here any time don't have sidewalks on Locust, don't have sidewalks on Bob.
Any more questions over here?
I got a question.
Please.
If you have a couple of town, which I don't think you will, but I mean, say, can anybody go in and buy a lot from you?
It will sell a lot.
All right. Do you have to be the builder, or can they have their own builder?
No, anybody can build. We want it to be, we're not going to restrict that we can only, we're the only ones in there. But we will have in HOA covenants, we'll have certain restrictions where you can't put like a 5/12 pitch. You know, it has to have like a 7/12 pitch, and it has to be a certain percentage of brick, so people don't come in there and just put all vinyl siding and make them cheap. So we will have certain building restrictions in there that can keep the value of the homes where they need to be.
With it zone, if we were to zone it commercial and someone comes in and buys a lot, what's gonna stop them from doing something like that? Putting in a commercial business on a lot they bought?
No, that's just that's just that 1 acre up front, Mike.
Okay.
The whole rest of it will be residential.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, just on the street.
And, Jimbo, I just gotta make sure I got the right vernacular. So I just, you say the phrase masquerade, like when I'm gonna build a masquerade right at the front, at the beginning of this thing. What my language says is that there's a fence, or there's some sort of, that when you say fascia, and it's gonna match the rest of that. Explain what you mean by masquerade. Are you talking about a beautiful fence that goes all the way around the entire, the full?
You're talking about the storage unit or the development?
Well, the development, you used it a couple times. So when you started off with the beginning of the development, you said something to the effect that around the entire development, there'll be a masquerade kind of idea, and then you said something to the effect of that when we build the storage unit, there'll be a masquerade, and I need to know, what does that mean?
Okay, so the storage unit will be completely surrounded. It'll have one point entrance, it's a gated, and then what we do is we use the back part of the storage, so it's kind of like, the back of the storage is your fence.
Right.
So we brick that, so you're killing two birds with one stone.
So I want to make sure we hear that right. So you're going to brick the backside of the storage unit
Absolutely.
on the west side, which is next to Mr. Zavala's property. So the only thing he's going to see is brick.
East side,
East side.
north side.
Got it, I'm with you. And the north side's going to be
George's
brick
house will
also.
have trees on it.
Got, or it has trees on it.
Already has trees.
That's
so
right.
We're not going to
Not
break
touch
those
them.
trees.
Got it,
And in the front, which is only a couple hundred feet wide.
got
As
it.
far as the entrance of that, we will have an entrance on the development,
Mhm.
non-gated.
Got it,
There's 3 points of access, 2 in the front of Locust, 1 in the back,
okay.
which will be done on phase 1. And then each
Now, the
home,
2 points entrance are to the development, not to the storage building. I think that was part of the confusion
only to the development.
with the crazy social media stuff, so.
Talking about Locust,
Yeah, I think there was a confusion that there was going to be 2 points of entrance to the storage unit off of Locust, and that's not part of the development. I want to make sure people understand
no, there's not.
that development has 2 points of entrance off of Locust
That's
and
correct.
1 point of entrance off of Park Lane on the north side. Yes,
Yes.
because then Park Lane also runs all the way down the right on the east side of it, I'm with you. Because, I mean, some of us are possibly buying houses over in that area, so there's this, I want to make sure people understand that when you talk about a masquerade, that it's covering the storage building. It doesn't look like some big metal building put out in the middle of the field.
No,
That's the part that's
The roof line
disappointing.
is really low, it's not much
Yeah.
taller than, it's a couple feet taller than your garage.
That's what I wanted to hear. I just wanted to make sure I heard that correctly.
Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna know it's even, I'm telling you, you're not gonna know it's there when you get there, I mean,
Yeah.
it's real small.
That's what I need.
So you just said they were for RVs and boats, you gotta be pretty tall for RVs or boats.
Yeah, but your boats are not tall, you're not putting a yacht in there. And in your RVs, I mean, the tallest RV is what, 10 foot? 12 on a fifth wheel? Probably not putting a fifth wheel in there. I mean, we have an acre. So, I mean, somebody's gonna put a bumper pull RV or something, but if you're gonna put a big fifth wheel, it's not gonna fit in there. Which you're not gonna put that in front of your house either, I mean, that's not gonna fit in the drive.
So the maximum has to be 10 foot,
Do what?
10 foot.
I mean, our buildings are, we only have 7-foot doors on a storage unit. Yeah, so I mean, you're not dealing with anything big. I mean, if it's an RV, you know, it's gonna be on the back side of the RV where, you know, you have your buildings the way we have the, I wish I could pull some up so you guys can see it, but your outdoor storage, which is very, very small, probably can handle 20 units maybe, that's not many, is in the very far north side. You can't see it from the road, you can't see it from anywhere. The north side is backed up by senior living anyways, and there's a fence around it. So you might be able to see the top of the, if you drive around the backside of the neighborhood, you might be able to see the top of an RV, maybe. Other than that, you're not gonna see anything.
What's the average size? I mean, I know it's 7 foot tall.
Oh, Most of ours are 7-foot doors, and they're 10 by 20s. 7 by 20s. Yeah. It's like a single car garage.
To clarify a little bit further of what you were asking, 2 entrances to the residence on Locust, 1 on Park Lane, 1 for the storage.
The storage actually enters off one of the 2. That's another thing, you don't see from the road.
Okay.
From Locust.
Okay.
You have to drive in the development. Instead of taking a right to the duplex, you take a left into the.
But only 1 going into the storage.
That's it.
Right. And that was part of the discussion is that it was going to be taking up more traffic for the storage building off of Locust. Well, they got to come into the development in order to get there. I mean, it's about, I don't know, what is it, 400 feet from Locust into the middle there, that you put the entrance to the storage building?
No, I think, less than that, a couple hundred feet.
Yeah, I think it's like a couple hundred feet. So it's not, there's no traffic getting to be affected off of Locust into the storage building, which is part of the discussion that I've been hearing from the planning commission as well as in the design. The traffic gets increased because of the development, and correct me if I'm wrong, traffic gets increased based off the development stages in the houses. And as far as the crime rate then becomes, it's all set up with cameras. So, I mean, unless we got some sort of super serial hacker coming in to mess with it, I mean, that's.
They get broken into all the time.
That's true, that's true.
They are.
Absolutely right. So that's one of the things that I wanted to make sure that we clarified this, is that to the storage building, it's not coming from Locust, it's coming from the development side. And that the only way that you'd be able to tell it was a storage unit, this is if you drove into the development and went into the one entrance, right? Because there's only one entrance into the storage unit.
That's it.
So that's the part I had to make sure I had clarified. Did I screw that up?
Well, I want to piggyback off of that, because if these face towards the east, that's where the doors are going to be. So as you're driving up and down Locust, unless they have a brick wall around it, you're going to see all the fronts of those. You're going to see all that where people pull in and out of there. You're going to see all of that from the street. You are going to see them. You are going to see the entrances.
No, it's a compound.
That's what I meant.
It's a complete circle. Your doors are all the way around. You drive around, your doors are around.
So, but you're still going to see, I mean, that's going
No,
to be.
because you're back in your storage unit all the way around at 360 degrees, you got a digital brick.
You have pictures.
You say you've already made these, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying.
Arnold? I got a designer question. So on your set of plans from, I guess, you're offset Locust a little bit. What is that distance from the existing road to Locust? Not Locust. How far are we going back to west when you're offsetting that?
Where you park? Commercial?
Yeah, no, just the road, the new roadway. I
There's
live
2
on-
roads going in
Yeah,
there?
how far are we going back to the west when you're offsetting that?
Are you talking about the entrance?
Yes.
Well, there's a,
You see, I couldn't tell by the plans on how far you were.
the edge of the curve is 20,
No, I'm just talking about the new road where it starts.
the new road starts 120 feet.
120 feet that way.
From the property line to the east, going west, that's where the curve will be.
Okay, I couldn't tell where that started though.
And that pond, I mean, it's a big pond, it's 120 by 260. It's a big pond.
And that's-
Big pond.
I get the fishing on
Yeah.
It's a big pond. I think that,
Which of these storage facilities are what's the name of it?
we're the same page as the prior.
No, so it's not built over there yet either. Do you have any that are built and existing and working?
Just the one, and still are about 50%.
If I could have you stand up where we can hear what the question is.
I was trying to Google his property. He says he's got a storage already working. I just wanted to see what it looked like since it's got a masquerade or whatever.
Locked up.
Locked up? Okay, thank you.
Well, I don't know anything about whether storage units get broken into or not, but we do have an expert in the room. Mr. Umstead?
It does happen, but not very often. It can happen, but anybody can happen. Whether it's a storage unit or a garage or a shed, he has the cameras, he has lights. Do we have patrolling them or checking them?
And Mike, are yours gated?
No, they're not gated.
Which I do know that Mrs. Cochran has that unit sets out on the west side of town, and it is gated. It does have fence and lights, and they cut a hole in the fence out there and broke into a unit out there. But it just happened once. Now she has cameras set up and to deter from that. I don't know whether it does deter from it. I don't know. I do know that did happen once out there.
This is 152 feet wide in the front. Keep in mind, a normal single-family lot we're building is 120 feet wide. So it's only 30 feet wider in the depth of a single-family lot. So the footprint's pretty small.
What's your average price gonna be? You said affordable, but what's your version of affordable?
The lots.
No, the whole house and lot combined. And what's your average house affordable?
I hate to give you a price because the lumber price is going crazy, but
You surely got some type of an idea.
we do. Our goal, I think, Perry is going to be somewhere around $125 to $35 a foot.
Okay, but now how many dollars is that?
Well, it's anywhere from 1,300, maybe even 1,250, all the way to 1,800 square feet.
Okay, so let's say a 1,500 square foot house.
200,000, 190,000 for a 1,300 square foot house.
That's what you lot.
It's everything, turnkey. Our goal is to make sure that we're selling these lots as affordable. So I did want to buy their own lot and build their own house, their own plans, because maybe they don't like our plan, they can do so. And our lot's going to be very, very affordable.
Question. I'm looking at your website for your storage facility that you have over in Stillwater. I'm sorry, Christy Bennett. It's got a rental thing on here. Was that not just for the properties as well? Well, I can rent one right here online for over there, except for there's none available right now, but it's got a, like, lets me set it up and rent it online, even though I don't live there. So it doesn't matter if I live there or not, is what you're saying, right?
Well, the goal is to rent to people in the community first. So we don't have this facility built where we were talking 75% complete. You know, we're not going to have a facility built where they're in there. And hopefully our goal is to say, hey, so what we do over there on the one in Stillwater, is we're building homes, we're currently building homes and stuff over there. You get huge discounts if you live in that community for that too. So if you live in the community and want a storage unit, hey, guess what? We're going to give you a certain percent off. We're going to give you the first month free, and 24 months, we're going to give you another month free. So we're incentivizing people to live in that community to rent from us, to occupy that storage unit. So that's our ultimate goal. Ultimate goal too is to house people to make things cleaner. So if they don't rent from them, no, we have to cash flow and we have to go outside to the community. I mean, because I don't think you're going or anybody else can come over and pay the mortgage on it if we just don't rent to the neighbors in there. But the ultimate goal and why we're putting the HOA in place is to rent to the people in the community so they have a place to go. Because we're not allowing cars parked on the street. That's a big thing. You want to sleep there at night?
Charge them for it, is what you're saying.
I mean, if you have 4 cars and you want to park them somewhere, then yeah. But if you have 4 cars, hopefully you can afford a $40 a month storage.
Do you have an idea of the other 2 neighborhoods that have the storage unit? What percentage are rented from the residents inside the community?
Well, we're not done building. So we're about 25% complete with the houses, probably 50% storage.
We couldn't hear.
If there was a of the neighborhood that is in Stillwater, if there was a percentage that he knew of the storage units that were rented by the neighborhood versus outside the neighborhood.
And what was that percentage?
We're not completed with either one. We can't give you statistics on it.
Do you have any of them rented yet in
I
Stillwater?
thought you said.
No, because we're not completed.
Right, but you said some of them are operational now at the one in Stillwater.
No, I
Do you
never said
have-
any storage units are.
Oh, you just said some of them are completed, they're not
Our
actually.
neighborhoods we've developed are completed. We have multiple.
I'm sorry, I just misunderstood.
So we have multiple developments that we've built in Stillwater. We do have a development that's completed. It is about a mile from that storage unit. The development that we're building next to the storage unit is not completed yet. We're currently building homes on it.
And those have an HOA?
Absolutely.
Is that Skyline East?
We put an HOA in everything.
So do you need storage units if you have an HOA? I mean, would that keep the neighborhood kind of
yard's nice, and,
You don't have to have storage units, but they gotta go somewhere.
I mean, if you're having an HOA, then.
So if you're building a house, or if
Like
you're buying a
that.
house and it's got a 2-car garage, and you have a 3rd car, or 4th car, or a boat, large junk, whatever it is, do you wanna drive a long ways, or do you wanna be really close and accessible to your
Well, there's no place in Perry that's a long way.
I get it, but, I mean, do you wanna be right there, or do you wanna walk over there and drive, or not?
But I looked at the houses too over there in Stillwater, and they're so close together. I don't even know that you could even put a storage building in your backyard if you wanted to, because they are so close. Are these houses gonna be that way?
No, that's a high-density neighborhood. So that's 3.5 acres per home to 4.5 acres. Actually, one of them's 5.5 homes per acre.
But you're gonna be selling property for a build-to-suit situation as well. So if somebody comes in and doesn't want you to build the home, somebody can come in and buy a property and build themselves,
Correct.
correct?
But it would have to fit the covenants of the.
The covenants are real relaxed. It's just saying, hey, we don't want a siding house, and we don't want a flat top roof. I mean, it's real simple. It's not anything that is out of the norm and real strict. It's just, and it's no trailers, you know, we're gonna keep things, you know, we're not gonna put a barn in your backyard.
Anybody over there got any questions? Anybody over here have any more questions? I was gonna say, we kind of.
Wait for it.
Introduce yourself and.
Okay, sure. I'm Mike Stadova. I live on the east side of the development, and I probably have that extreme drop from the field down to my backyard as anything. And one of my concerns is, over the last 10 years, the erosion has started where I'll get water in this big building that I have. I used to have a motor home in there. And it's eating underneath the slab on one side. My concern is from day one, if you start shoving dirt around, am I gonna be protected from day one? In other words, I don't wanna see terraces busted and shoved around without building up the dirt along the east side where I'll be protected.
Absolutely. That way we don't have a big flood and something comes in.
Yeah, it could happen the day after.
That's right.
You do the dirt work.
Yeah.
So, with my slab being about that high off the ground, it wouldn't take much to get water in the house.
So a good thing is, like I mentioned, these lots are only 120 foot, they're 120 foot deep. So that's all the runoff you're ever gonna get in the back of your house moving forward, because the street's gonna stop it. So, you're not gonna have, there's our engineer, water's coming this way, it's gonna hit the street, we run down the street. So after that's built, I think we should be protected on that stuff. During the construction phase, we do dike up that backside. So we're gonna go ahead and funnel everything down to, which will build a detention pond. It just won't be complete. It'll be still kind of going in and going.
Will there be a survey done before long where I can see where my property line is in back? Because I probably mowed 10 or 15 feet out into that field.
We did a survey. We've done a survey twice, but we didn't do like every 50 feet. We did the corners.
Oh, I didn't see,
Yeah,
I didn't see stakes or anything.
George has got, probably you can see those over at his place.
Okay. I just was curious where.
They're on the corners, so
I'm not gonna be able to tell.
probably not where you're at.
There's trees all the way down through there.
Yeah.
Will any of those trees have to be knocked down on that east side?
Depends.
Just depends on the property.
Yeah. Well, even if it's on the property line, we still may not knock the tree down. If it's in the backyard of a house and it's not gonna be in our way, we won't take a tree down.
Oh, I don't have it in my backyard.
Yeah, but we try not to. We like those trees.
Yeah, okay.
You might explain what you said earlier, when you were talking about cutting the street in on the first phase up front, which, in order to move some dirt around, because that should help some of that on the construction part, worried about what's going on.
So when you do a development, you want to try to make it balance. Balance means you don't want to import nor export dirt. You want to make sure you use all the dirt there, and manipulate your dirt where it flows and drains properly. So right now you just have a raw piece of land, and they put terraces in to help the runoff and erosion. But what we're doing in lieu of that is we're putting in streets and houses, so we're going to have accelerated water runoff. So your water's gonna go faster when it runs. It's not getting any more, you're just going to go faster. That's why you put retention ponds in. In order for us to balance the site, make it where we get rid of the terraces and it's not all hilly and water just completely just runs to his backyard and it's evenly distributed to the detention pond, we have to go in there and do mass grading on the whole site. So you're gonna see dirt work going on the whole entire 30 acres. In doing that, we'll go in there and cut the streets. So even though we may only put pavement on phase 1, all phases, and you'll see the whole entire neighborhood laid out, there will be dirt streets everywhere. We will not add the pavement nor utilities in there until we get to that point of the phase due to cost. So it's very expensive to add street, sewer, if it's a 7-year project. So we'll just leave that and we'll leave it cut. That way still things run down the dirt streets and it goes to our concrete street and then out to the detention pond. So we will do mass grading on the whole entire facility and cutting all the streets.
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
If you do that, who's gonna maintain all the dirt and stuff? I mean,
We're still
all the
owner of
houses are not gonna get bought and built overnight.
it. Yeah, we're still owner of it, so we have to maintain it, mow it, keep up with it. I mean,
Keep in place the stormwater pollution prevention plan approved by DEQ.
Okay, I've got one other question now. On your roads and stuff, have you done any core samples to see if your dirt is compatible for roads or packing?
no. There
Not
is-
all dirt is
Yep.
okay for roads.
Right, so when we cut it, knowing how much we're cutting out and fill, then we'll start doing cores and we'll do compaction tests to see where we are.
Why
At
didn't
that
you do
point.
cores before so you know what you're up against?
That's a
Whenever
dirt
we did
man.
a job, we didn't get cores.
When I send the plans to dirt man, he bids it accordingly, so if he wants to go do a core, that's on him. We have had situations where you have swelling clay or bad soils, or instead of using ag base, compacting it, you have to get rid of more undercut if it's not suitable, and then we'll have to soil seam it to stabilize it.
Anybody else have it? George, we haven't heard from you yet.
I'm gonna need some 3 minutes. I'm gonna borrow 3 minutes from a lot of people Well, and I got this from our city attorney. I think we're mixing a lot of things here. So we talked about all the housing 300 feet, but we never got to the point to where we talked about 300 feet for the whole project or 300 feet from the commercial. So if we go 300 feet, and our city attorney gave me this idea, we didn't have enough land. Jimbo had all the land, more land than anybody, all of us put together, correct? Is that what we spelled last time?
Well, no, it's from the exterior boundary of the property.
Of what property?
Of the property, well, let's talk about the way that Powers did it, okay?
Yeah.
Because there's actually 2 different ways that we looked at it. And we did have the protest map analyzed by Cowan Engineering. In fact, there's an exhibit that we have here with respect to protest. But it appears as the way Powers did it is they took the entire tract, and in fact, they included George's property.
Right.
Okay, which
The
I know
entire
is.
project, the whole 30
The
acres.
whole thing,
Right.
okay? To get the maximum distance, okay? And that's what they did the 300 feet from. Well, then, we looked at it and said, well, they shouldn't have included George's, because that's not part of his property. That's not part of the property that's being rezoned. So we took your property out, it still went, 300 feet that way. And in both instances, and this is, I didn't do it, but as analyzed by Cowan, we didn't reach the 50% for the super majority with respect to the
Okay,
property.
let me interrupt you. Yeah. So we've been talking about this thing, and we're mixing, again, we're mixing things up. So we talked about, okay, so 300 people around this whole project. You hear me now? This is what I was told last time I was here. Okay, good enough. Nobody here is protesting housing, nobody. Everybody's for housing, I'm for housing, I think it's a great idea, I think the town needs it. But we're protesting, I'm protesting this, the commercial zone, okay? And I was told this time I was here, well, I don't know if there was a miscount, I don't know what happened, but I was told, hey, Jimbo has more land than all of you clowns put together. That's the message I got, okay? Again, nobody's protesting the housing. We're protesting, a lot of us, most of us are protesting the commercial zone, okay?
Well,
If we isolate the
Well, if you
commercial
did
zone, I got more land than he does, so I'm waiting. I mean, according to the rules and regulations, I'm waiting. I mean, we are getting a lot of information here that one thing is one thing, another thing is one thing, and it's just jumping all over the place. Nobody really knows exactly what it is we want to do, how we want to do it. So, if I'm wrong, please somebody say something. So that's one of the things, I don't know what's in this building, or if it's just nervous, I don't know, but anyways. So that was one of the things. Commercial zoning, again, we got the same thing. Let's not make a mistake. Jim needs the money, I get it, he's a businessman, he's gotta make money. He just spent a bunch of money, he's fixing to spend a lot of money. He needs to make some money. And I get it, And I want him to make money, and I want him to be successful. Here's the thing, why does it have to be right there? Why can't you move it on the other side, build us over there? It's what, an acre and a half right there? 1 acre. How many houses are gonna fit in 1 acre?
3 or 4.
Is that really gonna,
2.5.
is that really gonna affect the sewer, the electrical and all that? I mean, 4, 5, 6 houses. Is that gonna affect all the work you guys been doing? I mean, I don't know, somebody tell me. 6 houses, I'm just a little big. 6 houses. You know, the build there, I ain't river water. Yeah, it is.
I didn't think it worked.
And so I'm gonna put my water right here, my mouth's getting dry. So,
Maybe.
so I get it, Jimbo, dude, I'm serious. I wanna work with you, and I think everybody wants to work with you. But, commercial building in that area, and if you do, what is it right up against my house? I looked at the plans, and that's right up against that. I asked the question last time, I said, hey, so Jimbo's gonna be right there. I see where it's at, because according to the plans, you're gonna be right at the edge of my property. What happens if a storm comes, a limb's falling your buildings, takes out the roof, who pays for that? How you gonna get to the back of that thing to break it? Because now you're gonna be in my property, putting brick out, and I'm not gonna let you. I mean, I'm not. And so, you know, it's all those things that we're just, let's see. Commercial building, so I believe that you're just gonna do C1, commercial building, and I believe that. Now, one thing's happening in Edmond now, people, and I work in Edmond, so I know. They come in, they build storage buildings, and I don't think Jim was gonna go to that. But they'll come in, and all of a sudden, it's a 20 by 30 or 40, and all of a sudden, it's a body shop, all of a sudden, it's a weed grow, all of a sudden, it's who knows. You know, and I don't think Jim was gonna do that. I think he's a better person than that. But Jimbo walks away from all this, who knows? It could happen. I mean, I see it. I sell construction equipment. I drive around. I know my stuff. I mean, and I'm in the construction business for forever. Underground construction, I know it inside out. I mean, surface construction, I'm learning it. I know what I'm talking about when I see what's going on. But like I said, I don't think Jim was going to get to the point. But Jimbo may not be here forever. Who knows? I mean, he might. I'll leave you. I mean, who knows? You know what's going to happen. What guarantee do we have? At the end of the day, once you sell that commercial, we're done. We are done from now on. And here's the other thing. If you buy a property there, it's your choice to drive through 11th Street. Is it 11th? That comes through there? Yeah. If you come in through 11th Street, and there's storage buildings, and you buy a house in here, that's your choice. This is not my choice. And it's not our choice. So, let's see. You know, who's to say, I'm hearing all these houses being built in town. I live here damn near all my life. I have an accent or whatever, but you know what? I live here all my life. Damn near, I'm proud of that. So, this is a nice town, and this is a nice area. Sorry, I get emotional about this, because I love this town. I could move to Edmond, but I don't want to move to Edmond. I want to stay here. I believe in this town. I think town needs help. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But, sorry, just.
We've been the same size forever.
You know, Locust Street, same thing. You know, it needs to be patrolled. That's not Jim's fault, but same thing. People go by there 100 miles an hour, just kids walking down the street. You need to put some speed bumps or something. I don't know. I mean, it's a racetrack. 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm out there feeding my cats. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. So anyways, let's see. See what else I got. I'm good with the house for the yellow people. I'll talk to you. I'll offer to buy some land from you, and I'm still on. The offer's still on. But again, I want you to succeed. I want you to make money. I think you're doing a good thing for this town. I just don't want me more so than anybody else, in all honesty. But we don't want a commercial building right there. I don't know what else to say. I got a lot of things written down, but they're all over the place. So I'm kind of confused a little bit here. And so.
Put more of my glasses, George.
No, no, it's not that. It's just that you write notes, and it's pretty sad when you can't read what you wrote down. So, anyways, sorry for the pen, but I just got a little emotional. That's sweet. Well, I don't know about that. It's weepy, really, but anyways, it is what it is. So, anyways, we're with you, Jimbo. We're with you, except for storage buildings.
You know, one of the problems with those storage buildings is there is just certain ones of us within the 300 feet boundary that had any kind of input. And I don't know hardly anybody in this town that wants those storage buildings up there. There's all kinds of people all around town that are not happy
Yeah,
about
a
that.
lot of places that storage units could be built in this town. And I mean, I realize you've already bought this property, but, I mean, if there's a need for them, I'm sure there's a spot that's already zoned commercial.
So anyways, that's all I got to say. Again, my apologies. This is an emotional thing for me for many different reasons. One, obviously, is my house, but the other is, you know, I like this town. You know, I could leave if I wanted to, but I want to stay here. So, anyways, thank you.
Thank you, George.
Sorry I interrupted you, but I was on a roll.
I would like to make a few
I
comments.
just have a couple.
The city attorney has something to say.
Yeah, first of all, I mean, what you said that we've remained the same size, you know, since the land run is true, right up until 2020. Our population is now 4,484. So a dramatic decrease, and as compared to some of the other cities we looked at, a larger decrease than what we're seeing, not in numbers, but in percentage. Of course, you know, that's a reason to look at, innovative plans like this. And I'm not going to speak to the commercial. I mean, that's not my decision. We've heard everyone here, and we've heard them loud. I did want to, though, speak to the issue that I actually brought to the city and has been in place for 20 years, and that is our site plan review. For this property to ever be used for a different use, it would require a new site plan review which would require notice by posting
When
right
you
out
say
there.
this side, are you talking about the commercial or the
I'm
entire
talking about the
property?
commercial, no,
Okay.
I'm talking about the commercial. Because that's, the commercial and industrial is the only place where we would do the site plan review. And so, you know, the owner there would have to come in and tell us what he's doing and give us a new site plan. The public has the right to come in and participate. I will tell you, in other cities, they have eliminated the right for the public to come in and hear site plan review. It's not done that way in Stillwater, it's not done that way in Enid. That's all done internally. And I have held out for that to be a process that involves the public to ensure that we hear just what we're hearing here today. I think that's important in making decisions. So if in fact, you know, you did rezone it, and I'm not trying to give you an argument in favor of it, I'm just telling you what our laws would do. If it did get rezoned, it couldn't be rezoned to a gas station or something without a site plan review. And then it would go before the public with notice, and you would have to approve that, or the change wouldn't be made. Now, we're here on the preliminary plat, and of course, later the council will discuss the zoning. We did do the protest. I want you to speak to that, you know, to the protest, Michael, because, you know, it's your firm that did it, and you're of the opinion that they didn't reach the 50% threshold for the supermajority of the council with respect to zoning, but, you know, the council are all, you know, grown-up people and can make their own decision. But with respect to the preliminary plan, and this is perhaps excluding the, you know, the controversial commercial issue, okay, but with respect to the balance of the preliminary plan, is it your opinion as the city's engineer that this thing has been designed, and that's without talking about the commercial, is it your opinion that it's been designed properly, that the drainage is correct, that it meets the terms of our streets, that the easements are correct, that the setbacks are correct? Because, you know, what we're here to do, you know, possibly is approve a preliminary plat. And then I think I'd like you know, talk about the protest, talk about the preliminary plat, and then talk about the preliminary nature of the preliminary plat. It doesn't allow any lots to be sold. I mean, all this has to be done, and done correctly, and inspected before the first lot, you know, could ever be sold there. Would you touch on that?
You are correct.
When you answer these, can you separate it out just a little more than?
Yeah.
than
Yeah,
he
I'll
did?
start with
Thank you.
the preliminary and the final plat. The preliminary plat is an idea, and that we approved these lots, we approved this water, sewer, these easements and conveyances to the public, and then it's built, but it still has to be accepted by the city before a final plat is approved. And the developer can't sell any lots until your final plat is approved. That means it's been inspected and accepted, all grading's done, all sawing, and then they can start selling and developing lots. Back to the protest map, we did look at the development as a whole and took the radius as required by the rules and took into account all the protests that we had versus non-protesting or non-participating. And like Bryce said, they came out lower than the 50%. And we just provided that information for staff's consideration. As far as the water, sewer, streets, they are in agreement with your standards, and we agree that they're acceptable. The only question that we had was the easement for the gas line. That it appears that the gas line does not have an easement, so you're at the mercy of the owner at this point to move it if needed and provide an easement for that, which will probably go in right away, is my understanding.
We got the gas in there.
Well, there's a gas line there now.
The gas well.
Oh, you're talking about gas?
Yeah,
well.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes, that was our only easement in question. So the city still has control on kind of how and where that's placed as it's located.
Is that something the Corporation Commission gets involved in?
Well, the Corporation Commission governs those rules, and that's part of the question we asked about setbacks. And there are rules about new or live wells and how close they can be to any dwellings. And they meet all of those requirements at this time.
Earlier, you mentioned a few things that were still, and I don't recall the exact topics, but that were still not finalized. Can you give us a rundown of what those things are?
The oil well line, or not oil, gas well, sorry, line location. And some of the questions that we had were just, some sheets that we maybe didn't get, and most of that information was sent back to us, such as landscaping, and some portions of the drainage report. But like I said, the drainage is acceptable after reviewing the full report that we did receive. The hydraulic analysis and water supply, as I said early on, we can review that, but it'll also be reviewed by the state. So we did have some questions about the hydraulic analysis, and we haven't received that yet. But as far as water supply goes, we looked at this early on and sewer supply. We did decide that if designed correctly, you had ample supply. Was there anything I missed that I mentioned earlier on?
I was making sure there wasn't anything, but I was hoping you would tell me if you missed anything.
We've reviewed the plans and they do meet the city standards.
I have a question for the engineer. I don't know, is it customary for the city to hire you guys up front and not the contractor to do all the engineering and all this?
Well, he has an engineer that provided these plans. We didn't design this. We review it to make sure it meets your standards, and we represent the city and making sure that it's done in accordance with your regulations.
Again, are you getting the car in case it doesn't go through? I'm sure your bill's going to. And I'm sure it probably will, but,
I agree with you that.
it just looked to me like, maybe he should have got all these ducks in a row before we hired him.
And I will say, he does his engineering, or spends a lot of money to have engineering done, and then the city hires its own engineer to review that and to some extent interpret it for us.
And that's typically why we're involved, is making sure we're following those processes. Some of those questions were, has zoning been approved? Where's your preliminary plat? Some of these things were already put together for the city, and we've now reviewed them all. But, we're involved at this point now, but I don't think we weren't at this first meeting, I guess, to represent.
Because I see some of his stamps, I think, from their engineer, but I haven't seen any of yours engineer stamps.
We don't stamp it. We say you need to meet these regulations in order for your stamp and plans to be valid for the city.
Were there any more engineering questions that cover everything you brought up, Bryce?
I think so, yes, thank you.
Okay.
I just have a couple of quick questions. I'm Jennifer Dillard. I live at 1203 Locust. But one of my questions was, you said with the commercial zoning that you couldn't do the sewer lines and stuff there. That's only a matter of feet from George and Marlita's house, from the houses across the street. Why is that so difficult to get sewer and water and stuff in there when that's, they're right there next to it. So why is that so difficult?
We didn't design that, but we have reviewed it, and in talking with them, they didn't plan for sewer there, so the way it's graded, it doesn't flow towards natural drainage of sewer towards their sewer lines, which are on back sides of lots in other parts of the neighborhood.
Okay. And my other question, real quick, is about the senior living. Go ahead.
The sewer for George's goes to the west and then back to the north.
Gotcha.
So it's a long ways from this.
Okay. And the people across the street to the south on Locust?
Well, we can't run across the street on the sewer, we'd be ripping up streets and.
Okay. That's already in bad shape, but that's a whole other thing. Senior living, I just have a couple of questions. I know almost every person in this room, and I'm sorry, I'm almost a senior myself. There are a lot of older people in here, and there are a lot of people on fixed incomes in this town. So I just had a question. When you said about the senior living that you guys were gonna pay for the garbage service and the lawn care and stuff, are those people going to have to pay to be a part of that HOA? Because when you have seniors that are on a fixed income, rent and utilities are bad enough. And we do pay for garbage. We all pay that as part of our city bill. So if you guys are gonna take care of that, then the people that live there wouldn't have to pay that garbage?
No,
They
the
would-
owner would pay for the HOA. So,
Okay.
me, that would be us. Yeah.
So
Our
the
goal-
people in the senior living then will not be responsible to pay for the HOA?
No.
Okay.
Our intent for that is for them to pay 2 bills.
Okay.
Well, 3 if they want dish or internet, but it's electric, total electric, rent, and then their internet, cable, whatever you want to do, that's it.
Right.
So they know what their monthly bills are.
Okay.
And let me
That's
clarify-
helpful, because I know that there are seniors, and I know there are people that can't be here that are
Yes.
listening that might have those questions. I know there are seniors that are in those apartments on 9th Street that were initially set up for seniors, that are no longer just for seniors, and that's turned into a hot mess too. So if there's anybody over there that's interested in moving in over here, I thought I'd ask those questions.
That's probably our biggest focus that we do and develop right now, is senior living.
Yeah.
And we focus really on 55 and older, and, I mean, we don't do the home health and nursing, that's on their own and their own insurance goal, but we really are focused on one target.
I was just curious how affordable that would be. So, okay, thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up question to what she just said? The city of Perry provides electric, sewer, water, and trash. And I want to make it really clear what you're saying. Because I don't want her saying that you told her they're going to pay electric, and then all of a sudden they got to pay water, trash, sewer, all those costs. Are you talking about a city of Perry bill, or are you going to put the bill for the water and the trash?
What we do is we put those on 1 meter.
Okay, the water and the trash?
So
Okay.
we usually set a dumpster at the corner.
Okay.
And we put a fenced-in area, or we don't do like individual, because the older people can't carry their own dumpster out.
No, I get that. I just wanted to make sure
But on
that
the
everybody
property-
understood when you said electric, that you really meant electric.
They pay the electric.
And that's what, yeah, I know you did. But I want to make sure that they said, well, you said electric, now we're getting a water bill too from the city.
So when we go in there and build those units, we build 1 meter.
Okay, all right,
So,
I'm good with that.
yep, we have 1 meter, and then I don't know if you're using a lot and he's not, I don't know, it's just 1 meter.
I just wanted to clarify that publicly.
Well, I think we might need a little bit more, because trash is tied to electric, right?
Well, yeah, it
Is that,
is.
that's a question, is that the way that works? Trash?
Well, he could be, we'd have to have a special contract with him, I'm sure. Is that, I mean, Bryce?
Well, some housing units can just have.
Yeah, that's what.
Well, we
yeah.
did I mean, this is us really, but we did, that came up a year or two ago. We talked about, and I don't remember right offhand where we ended up with trash and an electric bill. But I thought we said if you had an electric bill, you had to have, I mean, trash was.
I think it's if you have water, you have to have sewer. That may be,
You're both correct. If you have water, you have to have sewer. We did talk about that whenever people were wanting to not pay garbage on their electric bill for other buildings. But a
oh, you're right,
multifamily
you're
unit,
right. I do remember.
multifamily unit would be looked at differently than just a building with an electric bill.
No, those aren't multifamily, are they?
Well, those
No,
single,
they're
if it's
like
senior,
6 places and 7 places.
if it's senior living, it'd be multi.
That is considered, okay.
It'd be kind of like an apartment, you know, they're paying
Right.
electric, but there's only a dumpster.
Okay. Thanks for bringing that up. I do remember that now. That's how it was. I just wanted to clarify it publicly that we didn't come back and have an issue later that you said something, we said something. You know how it gets all.
1 meter, it's easy.
Does anybody else have a statement they'd like to make? Another question?
I got one more question. So, on that retaining pond, what is the distance off Locust? How far north are you going? Where does that start that's another thing that I was gonna ask the council.
There's a ditch, and then we pretty much
I get that, but what is the ruling as far as having a pond that close to an existing roadway?
Council?
I don't know of a rule. I mean, I don't know that we have a rule like that.
Yeah.
I'm just asking. There's gotta be an answer to that question, because you just can't put a pond that close to an existing roadway.
You said the dike starts way outside the right of way.
Well, it starts outside the right of way. And there's a ditch.
And then it's a
already
higher
there.
too.
Just curious.
So
if there-
you're not gonna drive down Locust. There's just not a pond right there.
Right, I get
There's gonna be a
that.
dike.
Same way on the north side, because that goes right up to the alleyway that goes behind people's homes.
It's I would say it's quite a bit further off the right way to the north. The south one's pretty close to the road.
So basically, from where you're planning on putting that detention pond, you're less than probably 50 feet from the existing watershed. You're gonna have a dike there. Just asking. So all that water's gonna come down that ditch, that dike's gonna hold it. Correct?
No, it turns around.
You still have that water, it's still gotta come down that ditch. But what you're telling me is if you've got a dike there, all that water on your new addition is gonna come down by the dike and will make a turn and go that way.
Just like it is today.
And that's what it does now, but I'm just saying.
Yeah,
it's-
the water coming down Locust doesn't go in this dike.
Right, but I'm saying a dike is gonna hold it in that ditch.
Oh, yeah, it's much.
Yeah,
higher.
like it is now.
Yeah, no, it's gonna hop the road.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because our dike should be higher than Locust.
Right.
So if it gets in
Just
the dike,
Just
then-
asking how close it is.
Yeah.
Is that something that's planning, is that something the planning commission ought to look at? Harvey?
Pardon?
Is that something we should look at?
Already a hill there.
Yeah.
That's not important. I mean, that's.
We hired an engineer to look at that for us.
And that, I really do feel that way, is I'm not an engineer, I can look, and I've got this packet with all this stuff, and I'm trusting him to tell me it works or it doesn't, because
Just remember, everything's on a piece of paper doesn't always work out in the real world.
I understand that. But I am in absolutely no place to argue with an engineer on engineering. Anybody else have anything? Yes, ma'am, please stand and tell us who you are.
I'm Jamie Tolson, I live at 1006 Locust, and I guess I really don't have a lot of questions for him or for the engineer, but I gotta say something about this map. This map has taken on so many iterations that it's gotten everybody confused. The map that's on the post across the street from my house and this map have very little resemblance of each other. We could not have gone to all the houses that are in this red area because we didn't know they were in the red area. And for you to say now that we don't have a 50% threshold when all these are colored in like this makes no sense to me whatsoever. I don't know what process has been going on with all of this, but I think I can speak for a lot of the people here that this has been a really haphazard, error-filled process. And that's been my biggest frustration through this whole damn thing. Because everybody I talk to tells me something different. Everybody's got a different interpretation of the plats and everything, and all the plans. We haven't seen diddly, and yet we were given only by your rules 3 days before the first meeting to lodge a protest. How could we have lodged an appropriate protest if we didn't have the right map?
Amen.
I am not happy about this map situation. We could have gone around to everybody and their brother. We could have gone to the Progressive Apartments management or ownership. We really were not given that opportunity. And I think this whole thing needs to be tabled until there's a lot more information disseminated to the citizens. I don't feel like I still have enough information. I want to see those maps and plats. I want to see what's going on here. I live right across the street, and yes, I'm fairly new to the area, but I planned on living the rest of my life here. And now I'm really having second thoughts about this because of the process that all of this has gone through. It is about as clear as mud. And I am upset about this whole thing because I'm really rethinking my plans about my future. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? We're still on item 2, where recommendation is receive the preliminary plat of the proposed woods addition, make recommendation as deemed appropriate, continue for further study, or take action as deemed necessary. And as I said earlier, I really don't think we can take action on zoning. I can give you an opinion on the zoning, and I'll say this because the council can hear it. I said this at the last meeting. I can't support rezoning that one section commercial just because it's embedded in the middle of a residential area. I think it's a great idea. I just think it should be somewhat on the exterior of a residential area. It's on the exterior of this particular project, but it's surrounded entirely by residential, and I think the reason for having zoning or having various zones is to put separation in different parts of, or different types of property. That's just my opinion on that. I'd be one vote. I'm telling you how I'm gonna probably vote if it gets referred back. I do think before it gets to that point, we would have to amend the master plan would need to be amended. I'm assuming that could be, if it's gonna get rezoned, that could be rewritten and change that from residential to commercial. That's my opinion. One of the things I said last time, 72 people, I believe it is, signed their names officially protesting that commercial property. Whether they're within 300 feet on that map or not, to me, is irrelevant. They're citizens of Perry that were willing to put their name on something and say, we don't want that commercial. I haven't heard anybody say they're opposed to having the residential property. I think it's a great idea. I hope we get this deal done. Just the only issue I have is the commercial property embedded in the middle of residential. I would defer to anyone else that had an opinion, or we could talk about receiving the preliminary plat or making a recommendation.
I have a question, Marlon. Can we receive the preliminary plat if it has not been rezoned to fit what's being requested?
I would have had the same question.
I don't know who answers that.
Yes. Yes, the answer is yes.
Okay, without it being rezoned?
That's correct. I mean, normally
it's an
done-
idea.
Normally it's done, yeah, it's an idea. It's like the engineer said, but oftentimes they're done at the same time, but no, there's no problem. It's approving what the developer has set out, and you can exempt any part of it that you want. I mean, you could approve the preliminary plat, but not the portion dealing with commercial. You want to see that in the future, correct, Michael? Yeah. And then there could be further study done on that.
So we can receive that and exempt the part that's proposed commercial, since that's the part we haven't made a recommendation. And we haven't already made a recommendation, and I'll kind of real briefly go through that so the council, y'all have already seen it, but in layman's terms, everything that was proposed to be R1, we recommended at our last meeting, we recommended that it be approved and rezoned as R1. There was one section right in the front, which would be on the south end between the two roads, that was originally proposed to be residential general RG. We changed and recommended that be R1. That's going to be duplexes. Duplexes are allowed in R1, so there was no reason for that to be. The whole idea is to keep it as restrictive as possible and fit what was going on. R1 would work on that. And then the one strip, which would be, for no other way of saying it, behind George's house, which was proposed to be RG. We recommended that go ahead and be rezoned as RG, which would be the senior living. We tabled the proposed C2, and I don't think we're doing anything with that at this point. But I just want to make sure y'all were clear on what those were in layman's terms. It's not nearly as easy to understand maybe as reading all those legal descriptions. Anyway, I've been doing all the talking. I'm good and hoarse. I would entertain comments or motions or whatever from the commission.
Before you entertain a motion, he asked that he went to call his partner in the deal about this commercial development. I think he'll come back in with a little bit more information.
Okay.
And I need a point of order. If at this point, if they're making a recommendation on all of the R1 preliminary plats, and what you said, and I want to make sure I got this correct, is that he said they were tabling the commercial conversation, which therefore would not come to us for a discussion to be voted on.
Well, as I understand it, the proposal was out there. The council can act in any way they want to on that. The recommendation from us was to table it. As I understand, and correct me, Bryce, the council can still take whatever action they choose.
Absolutely. I mean, the importance is notice, opportunity to be heard, public hearing, all that is taking place.
Okay.
And the recommendation is tabling, but you can take action however you want. That's how, on the commercial.
Got it.
And it's recommended approval on the other two residential zoning ordinances.
Bryce,
Yes.
so I just stepped out, talked to my brother, so my brother and I are partners.
Okay.
Just so everybody's clear, 50-50. I've heard y'all's opinions, usually we fight sometimes, but we're from a small town. I want to be a good steward here. We're going to be neighbors with George. Come cut the tree down. Get a little feisty sometimes. So we're going to have to do some manipulating. What we asked from the city is we're going to work with you guys here right now. We're going to say if we get rid of this storage unit and put senior living in lieu of the storage unit facing east, so the back would be to George's land. We have approximately 152 feet there. George, not saying I'm going to do this, but there's more land there than I probably need. I could probably get rid of maybe 40 or so feet wide, okay? So you can have a little bit of land there. You don't need all of it, but I have to lay it out, so don't hold me to the number. But if I have 20 feet, you can buy 20 feet by 284. How's that?
Yeah. That's
Whatever.
fine, Jim, we can do that. And I don't have a problem with, if you put a house in there and it's close, you gotta get, I don't have a problem with that either. So, yeah, we don't have a problem with that. But whatever you want to do,
Here's what we need though. We're behind the 8 ball. Our goal is to start this project. We already have bids back from Dirt. We don't need to continue to table and think and sit back and continue to argue with the citizens that we're going to be right next door to. Because I don't want to get, go out, because I'm going to be over here. I'm very interactive and hands-on. So when you guys see me over there, you're going to say, man, I hate that guy. So we want to be able to come over here and say, hey, can you keep an eye out for what we're doing? When we're building over here and we have our stuff on the ground, like, hey, don't mess with that guy's stuff. He's not a bad guy. So we'll get rid of the commercial. We'll put senior living there. We're still going to have strict HOA in place. People are not going to park there. There's crap everywhere. So you don't have to go to your storage unit. So I'm not building another one here. But we need this turnaround done and approved so we can move forward from the city side, from a planning and then acceptance is down the road, but from the standard side, from sewer, water, paving, erosion, whatever that we need to get it moved ahead and get on the ball.
In the spirit of being expeditious, the planning commission can't do anything on the zoning and what have you. And I'll defer the city attorney on this, based on what you're saying. Instead of that one part being C2, you're okay with it being RG. And I don't know, can the council, if they act on it tonight, can they rezone it RG, or would you rather that part be left alone?
No, they
Proceed with
can't.
the rest of it?
No, they can amend it RG tonight.
Okay,
We've given
we
them
can't do it,
notice
but I
that's a
think
much,
they-
I mean, if it went the other way, if it went from RG to commercial, a worse use, I mean, a more onerous use, I might have a concern. This is a lesser use. Our agenda, if you remember this giant thing that I put up at the front of all the agendas, says that every item is subject to being amended. Everyone that had any issue about this community, about this issue should be here and should comment. And so I think it's teed up for you. And that if you chose to take that commercial, that you could amend that under our current agenda to RG at the council level. And of course, that would not.
We can go ahead and accept the preliminary plat as it is, or?
Yes, we would need, Michael, there would need to be some redesign inside of the commercial property, but just as long as it was consistent with the designs which are already in the senior living.
We're gonna have to figure out how we can sewer it, but
Right.
he says we can figure out how to sewer it. It's not, I mean, we're dealing with an acre, but
Yeah.
we're ahead of the game right now.
Yeah, this is a plan, I think that you, and I would recommend the preliminary plat then, changing the commercial to RG senior living, and direct that our city engineer and that Jimbo get together with the details. Right, once again, it's just preliminary. I mean, before any lots are sold, this has got to come back to you. No lots can be sold till it's a final plat, till improvements are all in, so I think we're good.
I think I just moved what you said, right?
Yeah,
we always like to get that.
Whatever he said. Just accept the plan, we've already done our zoning motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
So moved.
We have a motion to accept the preliminary plat.
But
And a second.
But amending the portion which is commercial, that's gonna have to be redesigned to fit the RG senior living
That's what I
as
said.
the other section.
I
Right,
heard her say it.
That's what I said.
yes.
And that's what you seconded, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
No, he'd already said, he beat you to it.
Oh, we did he?
Or I'm, no, I can only hear in one ear.
Commercial to RG.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Roll call, please.
Franklin.
Yes.
Honeycutt.
Yes.
Parrish.
Yes.
Umstead.
Yes.
Dement.
Yes. And now, before we take item 3, does the city council need to adjourn their meeting first, or do we need to adjourn ours first?
Either one can adjourn first.
Go
Item
ahead.
number 3,
Move to adjourn.
we have a motion to adjourn. And a second by Jim. Roll call, please. I called it for you, it's Jim.
Franklin.
Yes.
Honeycutt.
Yes.
Parrish.
Yes.
Umstead.
Yes.
Dement.
Yes,
I want to thank you.
we are adjourned.
It's hard for everybody in the community. We want to grow, we want to do it right, and it's not easy. Appreciate all of you guys coming out. It's not been easy for the city, and I appreciate you and your brother coming to the table. I want my chair back.
We're still in session.
Yeah, hang on, guys, hang on, everybody. Is there, as far as the city council, is there any further discussion? If not, I'll take a motion on the adjournment, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Roll call, please.
Wines? Yes. Moore?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Bell?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Novak?
Yes.
Vaughn?
Yes.
Colmeyer?
Yes.
Sterling?
Yes. We'll take a small recess.